Joe Matalon.
So you're with Youth Upliftment?
Okay.
One son died. His other son is, both his boys were very good friends of ours.
The abbreviation
Yeah, we're the International Youth Foundation.
I can't even remember what we talked about, but then Maggie. It was Child Hope. That was before I ever met Maggie. No, that's right. That's right. Yes. Kellogg people, right? He was before it. Had a name on the left. So you've been here for how long?
I've been here for a year. And I'm so happy.
Is it just here in Jamaica?
Hello.
Or
Bill Reese. How are you?
How are you? Mark Allen.
We teamed up with a whole bunch of Jamaican partners to do like an outbound challenge across the country. We're all kids who have been getting.
And this is also on UNICEF, right?
I didn't know what I am in. I am in.
Speak to her.
What is the
Here in the downtown.
Actually, we get cooler.
We have a house at about 3,500 and sometimes in the winter.
You have a fireplace there?
Yeah. But let me tell you, last week have been really warm.
Well, you have a drought here.
Sharis from IYF.
International Youth Foundation.
Denise sends her apologies.
I can't
Busy now.
Tomorrow is my, I have interviews from 10:30.
Every day.
But I thought
from the International Youth Foundation.
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Bill over here to introduce you as well.
You met Peter.
How are you?
No, at the conference.
How are you? Yes.
Day in the life of the Minister of Finance.
Well,
inflation numbers came up at 0.1.
John skill training for
I take that until tomorrow.
a lot of that is
See what happens. See what bad news you get tomorrow.
violence prevention.
Yeah, that's about 2 months ago.
Yes.
The microfinance. Yeah, that was good. That was
He's on my board.
Okay.
One of my bosses.
okay. Good.
So we're here for a variety of meetings with the business community.
Hi, Sonita. Yeah.
I know you so
We know, yeah.
How are you?
Hello, Bill Reese.
Stop. No, not at all. I'm putting on succession.
Next 50 years.
You're nice. Well, I don't know if that's nice.
It is nice.
Yeah, it is nice. I love my work. All right.
Businesses can talk about how can we extend the employability program and job training, workforce development, those types of things. They're trying to
There's a fair amount of data in here. Couldn't really afford the bundle of traces.
That's right.
Hey, wait. Good.
Depends on what's in the agreement. You know what? I will. All that all I'm going to say to you is use our best efforts. And that is going to say that that's fine.
Identify the source of what communicate that. So, comment 2, which is the original comment. And we're working more with the community because it's great. It's all well and good if you retrain from their relationship and are willing to engage. Nothing's going to change. So now we're doing more on that side. But I think it addresses some of the state security.
We don't manage to stick on the bed.
Long speech in which he said nothing.
That's what he just said. And that's why I was extraordinary.
You've learned that defeat. You have to write a book and then give a book tour.
Former commissioner told him when he was that was what he was able to say.
Which we already knew.
Else he was unable to say. In the sense of dribbling into. And now when we get an expanding economy, it will be, second phase will be even easier. I hope so. Should be. We're looking for partnerships, not just with the private sector, but with the public sector. That's where you're starting.
That's where we're starting.
We're starting with the private sector. We've built on that with partnerships with the public sector.
Yes, certainly taking on as a personal challenge.
He has dedicated and resources. Oops, sorry.
Years ago, when Debbie was not well, I went to her house and taught the yoga class at her house to get her started. And there were about 5 of us, her friends at school. And eventually she started coming to class and she fell in love with yoga and she became a teacher. I didn't know that. Yeah. I mean, she talks about things, I'm not saying anything. Yeah. You know, you got her out of, yoga is so wonderful. Balance, content, you know, no Pilates, you see the difference, okay, the Pilates, not Pilates. It's going to strengthen, it's going to tone. Whereas in yoga, you're going to become more flexible, you're going to everything.
You know, I just said pasta a while ago.
And you feel like, oh, I used to touch her.
Yeah, the U-turn. Do you have that name for the second phase, or you changed it?
We don't.
Where do you live? Do you tend to do on the beach or the mountains? Oh, right. Yeah. Okay, so someplace where they can just run around.
You're going to find them before they get to you.
Agricultural science.
And you have tents or that kind of thing.
Tents? We have access to that. We have access to that. Right. Have those in our house.
Running around. Still learning.
Practice after you have a master's. Here, you get a bachelor's. So she's not supposed to go into the master's.
Wow! Somebody was saying, you know, I told you I that's somebody call him Mrs. Prince. I mean, all types of things. Well, as long as it's a good baseline from which to build, you know.
Absolutely. Alright, thank you so much.
How are you, Senator? Good to meet you.
It's right. Joe, I have to share with you. Can I share with you? Oh, yes. The Twitter. There's news network. I don't know who is behind it, but they're on the, yeah. But it wasn't underground. It was another one. Anyway, so I saw the tweet, you know, that we have it on good. Yeah, again. Right. Yeah. So Imani tweets, replies to the tweet. Yeah. So she said, we're supposedly running, you know? Just funny. I love Twitter because I just, you know,
That's why I don't subscribe to the
No. But Joe, you know, even Facebook.
Let me introduce you to Bill. Let me introduce you. Ronald Great, I'm Minister of Education. We're meeting tomorrow at 11.
Good. At 11 o'clock. Great. Same here.
Hello, Miss Sandra.
Hello, Minister. We go way back, you know. We were back in Maida days. Remember there was one day.
One more. That's lovely. Yes.
You guys.
Right. It's supporting that, you know.
That's the best part of the job, you know.
Good experiences. It can be helpful.
How we call it Jamaica. Small country. From the bad mentality. So by working together and we're looking at different strengths of the organization, we can become a powerhouse. We haven't really, I don't think we've actually unleashed our power.
New York was another one. 16% of New York State. Just in New York. Wiped them out. 20% gone.
Why, petty crime or?
Mayor Giuliani.
That was quick, yeah.
Then you look, it's like California has more weapons than you have. What? By definition.
And that's your definition.
Exactly.
So you're responsible. Not for the...
But it hasn't changed in the States. California still wants to run up.
We're bad in Canada.
And well, the state.
Very easily.
just colleges and community colleges, which I get raised in my job. How are you going to play each milestone? How are you going to rejigger another land?
Yes, for sure. Because we do it for junior team. We do a 5-year plan and then we look at the 1 year.
Yeah, what have you done in the first
You're not afraid to change.
And the Caribbean Youth Empowerment Programs. Additionally, many other representing the National Youth Service, Junior Achievement Jamaica, the NCB Foundation and JN Foundation have benefited from participation in learning conferences hosted by the IYF across the Caribbean and Latin America. This visit by the IYF, facilitated by YUTE, is aimed at continuing conversations about the challenges we all face as a nation and how we, as youth-serving organizations, can help to build capacity and create partnerships to effectively sustain change in the lives of our young people. The harsh realities we face as a Jamaican society today are no secret to any of us. But as we all know well, our young people, especially those within marginalized and vulnerable communities in the inner cities and in rural Jamaica, are at significantly higher risk. We grapple with educational underachievement and a mismatch of training with labor market demands. Youth unemployment is now estimated to be some 38.5%, nearly triple the national average unemployment rate. Crime and violence rates are high, with young men being the most affected, as both the victims and the perpetrators. And most damaging is a sense of hopelessness amongst many young people who are unavoidably idle, unattached, and unable to see a way out of their economically, socially, and environmentally challenged situations. For many of those youth, the work being done by the organizations you all represent here this evening may be the only opportunity for change, the difference between hope and hopelessness, between empowerment and bewilderment, and in some cases, even between life and death. And so we welcome and thank Bill and Peter for agreeing to this visit and having such enthusiasm for and support of youth development in Jamaica. And we thank all of you, our specially invited guests here this evening, for demonstrating that youth-serving agencies in Jamaica are eager for this sort of exchange and committed to enhancing their own organizations to better serve the youth of Jamaica. In addition to the reception this evening, a number of stakeholders, particularly from NGOs, corporate foundations, and the donor community, will participate in a luncheon scheduled for this Thursday to discuss the challenges of our work and receive some guidance perhaps from the IYF in key areas of interest, including partnerships, fundraising, capacity building, and monitoring and evaluation of programs. We look forward to welcoming those of you who are participating in those discussions. For this evening, I only ask that you enjoy this informal exchange. I hope and expect that you all will start to think of ways to engage and partner with youth and other organizations, and we look forward to your support. I want to now hand over to Bill Reese, who has a few remarks. I think it's a bit of a surprise to him, so we'll be able to tell, how quickly he can think on his feet. But before I give up the microphone, I want to thank two people in particular, my lovely wife Tracy, for agreeing to host us here at home this evening, and the hard-working team at YUTE, led by Alicia Glasgow and her team, for all of the organization that they undertook. Thank you again, Bill and Peter, for being here, and we look forward to increased conversations, partnerships, interventions, and change. A round of applause, please, ladies and gentlemen, for William Bill Reese, President and CEO of the International Youth Foundation.
Well, thank you, Joe, and thank you all, but particularly let me thank you and Tracy again. This is absolutely a stunning setting for an evening gathering, and the convening power of the Matalons and the convening power, I think, of the youth work and workers and the alliances and partnerships that you have already built are part of why I'm here. I do follow orders at times too, so he is one of my bosses. He's one of the 15 board members that help govern our foundation. Another board member of ours is Queen Rania of Jordan, and I think he took either some of her talking points or she took some of his, because Queen Rania sometimes talks about the hope gap. She first said it in my presence when we were talking about the digital gap back about 13, 14 years ago. And she said, I'm more concerned about the hope gap. And what did she mean? She meant literally, in her context, a Palestinian young person who is raised in poverty and has no role models around them, a mother, a father, an uncle, a neighbor, who has a real job in the real economy. And she said, we can't bring people to think about the future, to stay in school, to work hard, to play by the rules, to be entrepreneurial. What does entrepreneurial mean if you don't have hope? And so that is the essence of much of what all of us do at Youth and IYF. IYF is as Joe said, almost 25 years old. We were created 25 years ago by the Kellogg Foundation, which was a huge contributor at the time to international development, mostly in the Americas and a bit of Africa, and a huge investor in young people for years and years. And they wanted to do more, but they didn't want to do it by just giving away more money. They wanted to help us create a network, not a vertical command and control US-led foundation, but a network, what I call oftentimes a horizontal and virtual organization, and Youth is part of that. And all of you who do similar work can be part of that. We don't want to tell you what to do, we want to work with you around the issues of youth empowerment or upliftment. Joe put it very well. So well, I like to say that we're not in a youth development organization. The outcome we want of our work is not just a young person. We want a healthy, civically engaged, and employed or employable or business starting adult. And when societies get that right, that they bring kids through primary school, high schools, if they fall out of school, there's some second chance program, if they go on to college, but even we're seeing in many parts of the world today, kids graduating from college who can't find a job. When societies get it right, that kids learn how to be healthy by their behaviors and choices they make. They stay in school because they see a light at the end of the tunnel, that they will get a job, because most of us, all of us, 99.9% of us are not born with trust funds. So we do have to work. And I don't think there's a parent in the world that doesn't hope that their kid will have a better life or than they've had, and will have a chance, of course, to work, to earn your way out of poverty, or earn your way to stay in the middle class if you're lucky enough to be born into the middle class, but none of us will stay in the middle class if we don't learn the civic and health and decision-making and life skills and employability skills that are at the heart of what Youth and IYF do and our partners do in 70 countries around the world. So the return on investment, when societies get that right, and I say societies here because it's not just the government, but the government's terribly important. It's not just the business community to give money, it's the business community to be a partner in these efforts, because they will ultimately employ most of the people. And it's part and parcel of what the civil society or third sector or non-governmental sector or whatever we want to call it, those foundations, those citizen-run organizations, that when communities work well, their local governments, their business community, and all of those churches and mosques and synagogues and nonprofit organizations working together, you'll get a 50-year return on investment when you get a 20 or 25-year-old who is employed, civically engaged, and healthy. And when we don't get there, what do we have? We get the alienation, the continuation of poverty, or maybe a descent into poverty for a middle-class kid. When societies get that right, there's a huge dividend for 50 years. Then you could say a 20-year-old is going to live to be 70 and probably be a taxpayer and a good citizen and a good neighbor and a good parent for all those years. When we get it wrong, it's not a dividend at all. And the dividend is important because today we're talking about, the demographers talk about the youth bulge, the largest cohort of teenagers in the history of the world. And so when, and the statistics that Joe cited, 38% of your young people, about triple the normal unemployment rate or the average unemployment rate in Jamaica. That's pretty typical around the world, that young people are 3 times as more likely to be unemployed. When you've got a youth bulge, the demographers say we need to create 1 billion new jobs in the world to absorb all those young people who will become adults or are becoming adults or will become adults in the next 10 or 15 years. That could be a huge demographic dividend if we get those kids to the place that they're in their early 20s and are healthy, civically engaged, and employable. But if we don't, it'll be chaotic for all of our countries. So we're all in it together, I think, here. The youth development, the type that Joe was talking about, is for the poorest countries in the world and the richest countries in the world and everyone in between. We won't have stable societies. We won't do what's right for our young people. Our economies won't grow if we have those unemployment rates. So that is what we're all about. That's what YUTE is all about. And we are here this week, not because he ordered me as one of my bosses to come, because we want willingly and frankly quite enthusiastically to build on the OBRA and the Caribbean youth empowerment programs that we've been working on with the youths and the other types of governments and nonprofits throughout the Caribbean and frankly throughout the Americas and around the world. We'd like to bring some of those lessons learned from some successful projects to Jamaica. But in our notion of a horizontal and virtual network, we want to learn what works. There is no vaccine or silver bullet for these issues. But we should know what works by monitoring and evaluating what we do so that when you do an employment program like YUTE did, 50% of the people got jobs. You might worry about the other 50 that didn't get it, but maybe some did. But that's a higher percentage than in many countries in the employability programs that other groups are running. So we need to know what works. Then we have to build on it. So maybe the next round can be 55 or 60%. Or can be 3 times as many people go through that program. And I'm convinced that by working together in the stakeholder meetings we're going to have with your government, business, and youth-serving organizations that are so committed and have been doing a fine job for many years, we'll be able to build maybe something a little bit stronger, a little bit more sustainable, a little bit more lasting, and then take some of those Jamaican lessons learned to share in other parts of the world. And that's what we stand for, is to share best practices, to make sure that youth outcomes measured by real serious, not did you just get through school, but did you get a job at the end of the day? Is it a good job? Can you keep that job? Can you have a sense of moving up in a career pattern rather than a first job for a poor kid in many countries is the best job they may ever get? There is no sense of a future. And that's where the alienation and lack of hope comes in. If you have no sense of a future, you're not going to work hard and stick with your community and with your family and do the right things that communities need to be successful. So Joe and Tracy, thank you all. Thank you all of you who came tonight. And we look forward to talking with you more tonight and then throughout these next 2 days to try to build some collaboration that will be good for Jamaica, good for the youth of the world, and take some of your solutions and scalable best practices to other parts of the world. So thank you very much. Now here's the real boss.
We're about to have some food. Please.